This podcast is hosted by RPP.
If you are easily spooked, creeped, or offended, this might not be the podcast for you.
Hello, Fridgies. Welcome back to I Think My Fridge is Haunted, a very creepy podcast for very creepy people. My name is Gemma. Thank you so much for all of your comments that you've recently been putting on YouTube. It's been really lovely to read all of your thoughts about this case, and thank you so much for taking the time to write those comments. So the mushroom trial jury has been sequestered at the time that I am recording this today. It is currently the 7th of July. I'm hoping to have this out by the 8th. So the jury are currently in deliberations regarding the guilt or innocence of Erin Patterson. If you're new here and you don't know much about this trial, I have a whole playlist of videos about the mushroom case. So just go to, if you're on the YouTube channel, just go to playlists and find mushroom trial, and there's 8 or 9 videos now about the mushroom trial that will give you pretty much everything that you need to know. I say this in particular because there's one video that has been watched vastly more than other videos, and it's led people, because it's only a 5-minute video and I don't say a lot about the case, people think that it's the only video that I've made about the case. So quite a few people have helpfully told me in the comments that the beef Wellingtons were individually made, which I think we're past that. We have gleaned as much. Thank you. Watch the playlist. Now, for those of you wondering what the hell we're going to be talking about once this trial is over, I need to tell you I've got a list as long as my arm of cases that we can talk about. I am hoping that my co-host Lana will be back in the studio, maybe every couple of months or something, to record with me. That would be really awesome. She is in the background doing some technical stuff for the podcast, but she does live in a neighbouring city, so it is a little bit hard for us to get together. But have no fear. I have a lot of interesting cases to talk about. I do hope to bring back some of our history cases as well, because dark history is one of my favourite things on earth. Please go back and have a look at some of our videos on Olga of Kiev, the bubonic plague, the Salem witch trials. I do find that all of these cases do have a strange parallel significance to this world that we live in today, so they're always interesting to hear about. So let's get on with today's video. The jury is out. How long will they be out? I don't know. Maybe by the time I finish filming this video, I'll check my phone and they'll be out, and then this whole video will be insignificant. But before the jury went into seclusion to deliberate, Justice Christopher Beal spoke at length about the evidence presented thus far within the trial. When I say he spoke at length, he spoke for about a week to the jury before they were able to leave. So during what I've called just a spiel from Justice Beal, he did encourage members of the jury to count and discount certain elements within the evidence presented. It was interesting for me to observe that many netizens that were following what he said to the jury before they were able to deliberate, they took some of his comments as a sign that he was siding with the defense. Now, I can kind of understand why some people were offended at this. At first glance, it did appear that he was displaying bias towards Erin Patterson. I'd like to give some of my opinions on that. As usual, I'm not going to be going through every detail of the past week of the trial. I know that you guys are very, very well read on this case, so I'm not going to bore you with small details about oven trays. So I'm just going to pick out the bits that I found that were most interesting and make my opinions known on those. Now, at one point, Justice Beal went over inconsistencies that he observed during Ian Wilkinson's testimony. If you're new here, Mr. Wilkinson is the only survivor of the lunch. Of the 4 guests that went to the lunch, he was in hospital for several months and sadly lost his wife within the tragedy. Now, Justice Beal points out that Ian Wilkinson told the court that Erin Patterson told them all that she had cancer at the lunch. However, in cross-examination, it came out that he had told police that she had suspected cancer. So I don't think there's a whole lot of difference there. Cancer is cancer, suspected, whatever. But apparently it's a whole thing. Of course, as we know, EPAT denies this and suggests that Mr. Wilkinson misunderstood her. I think we all misunderstood her. We've misunderstood her on many, many points. She now claims that she was looking into having weight loss surgery later in the year and that it wasn't cancer at all. Can we all agree that the prospect of having gastric bypass surgery is not so traumatic that it requires asking your ex-husband's relatives for advice on how to tell the children? Ian said that she had suggested as much and that he led them in prayer. Justice Beal also pointed out inconsistencies from Sally Ann Atkinson. Now, Miss Atkinson's evidence detailed the timeline of when EPAT says she bought the mushrooms and when she'd used the Asian mushrooms during the year. Sally Ann Atkinson, we remember, is the representative from the Victorian Department of Health. On August the 1st, 2023, she spoke to Erin Patterson for 4.5 hours trying to get details of the lunch and why everybody had been sick. Now, Ms. Atkinson says herself that Erin's story changed multiple times, or she gave vague answers or sometimes no answers at all, which appears to be her MO. She tells so many versions of the same story that everyone just ends up getting confused. And this appears to be a reoccurring thing in this case. I'll give you an example from an episode show notes that I've made from a previous episode. Miss Atkinson noticed that the Asian grocer's story changed. EPAT told her initially, allegedly, that she used some of the dried mushrooms in a pasta dish some other day before the lunch. But in another conversation, EPAT told her that she'd never cooked a meal with the dried mushrooms before the beef Wellington lunch. So regardless of whether Miss Atkinson is a good note taker or not, EPAT told her varying stories. That's a fact. So what I'm seeing is that there are inconsistencies in the testimony of the witness because there are inconsistencies in the story that they're being told by the accused. What I'm saying is she's the common denominator. Speaking of inconsistencies, Justice Beal brought up whether or not the children were asked to join the family at the lunch. He states that Erin Patterson gave evidence that she asked the children if they'd like to attend the lunch or go to the movies. Which then brings us to evidence from Simon Patterson. He said EPAT didn't want the children to be present that day because she wanted to discuss this serious matter, which was either cancer, suspected cancer, fear of cancer, a lump on her elbow, or gastric bypass surgery. We're still not clear on what this health issue was that she wanted to discuss at the lunch. I don't think she even knows, allegedly. Now, Justice Beal said in court to the jury that if they find the statement of the witness to be inconsistent with their account in court, they can use that statement to assess the reliability of the witness. He said, quote, "If you find it is inconsistent, you will have 2 different accounts from the same witness," which in this case is pretty common. And that's part of the reason why I think there's going to be a not guilty verdict at some point in the very close future. Justice Beal also brought up the evidence from those digital guys, forensic digital guys, Matthew Sorrell and Mr. Sharman Fox Henry. Now, during his evidence, Mr. Sorrell, or I think it's Dr. Sorrell, had identified that there were 8 possible visits to the lock area based on mobile phone data collected from one of Erin Patterson's handsets. These visits happened around the time of March 2022, April 2022, August 2022, and February 2023. Now, Dr. Sorrell himself admits that there are, quote, significant limitations in terms of time and place. So that's another thing that the jury will have to take into account very carefully. the question of whether or not we can reliably count on mobile phone data. So we're asking the question, did the mobile phone tower pick up a phone that wasn't actually there? In my opinion, there must be something said for the accuracy of mobile phone towers in this day and age. It's not like we're divining water in the 10th century. Now, turning to some of the accusations made by the prosecution, Justice Beal listed to the jury the alleged actions of EPAT that the prosecution says are, quote, incriminating conduct. So, incriminating conduct. What that suggests to me is conduct that makes her look fishy, but doesn't make her a murderer. I think that's what he's trying to say. According to the ABC, the prosecution allege that EPAT lied about being unwell and faked death cap mushroom poisoning, lied that she used dried mushrooms from an Asian grocery store in the Beef Wellingtons, refused treatment on her first presentation at the Leongatha Hospital and left the hospital against medical advice. She was reluctant to obtain medical treatment for her children on July 31st, 2023. She lied that she had fed her children the leftover beef Wellingtons on the Sunday night with the mushroom paste and pastry scraped off, and that she reset phone B multiple times from August 2, 2023. There's just a few more as well. They also allege that she disposed of the dehydrator at the local tip on the same day, provided police with phone B rather than her usual phone during a police search of her home on August 5th, 2023, and later lied to police about her usual mobile phone number, and she also lied that she never foraged for mushrooms or dehydrated food. Now, some of these we know to be true, and some are still a little bit up in the air. Simon Patterson, we know, has given evidence stating that EPAT had a history of leaving hospitals at least 2 occasions in the past. Going back to her leaving the hospital, a nurse who saw Ms. Patterson in hospital told the jury she was reluctant to go into a bay, even though Dr. Webster had told her he suspected food poisoning from the lunch. Which, as we've said before, why aren't you getting both yourself and your kids in there as soon as possible? And why don't you have the whole family on the phone, conferencing, asking, what are we all going to do about this? Anyway, as we know, after that first hospital visit, EPAT signed a patient discharge form, and she also mentioned she needed to go home and take care of the animals. Which brings me to my next point, and this has bothered me for months. Doesn't EPAT have a dog? I'm sure I've read in the press that she's got at least sheep and a dog or dogs. And she also mentioned that when she had to go to the toilet on the side of the road, she put the tissues that she used in the dog poop bag. So that would suggest to me that she's got a dog. So what I wonder is, if you've got leftovers from the lunch, why aren't you giving it to your dog? Why are they going in the bin? That's a juicy piece of beef. My dog would fall into a pit of despair if I threw a piece of beef in the bin. In fact, let's be honest, I would have made him his own beef Wellington. I just would have made one just for himself because delicious. On a side note, my dog is very spoiled. I don't think I'm alone in saying that. A lot of dog mums spoil their dogs, dog dads as well. So what kind of monster throws beef into the bin and doesn't give it to their dog? It's just so weird to me. Another thing I want to know is, if there was a dog, where was the dog at the time of the lunch? Did she put the dog outside so as for it not to be a nuisance while they were eating? Because I know that, if you've got a dog around, even if, you tell them to sit on their bed while you're eating, they're gonna do little whiny noises and stuff like that. The dog wants a little bit, especially if it's beef, especially if you're cooking beef. They're gonna want a little bit. And sometimes, if you've got people over, they will give the dog a little bit from their plate. So where was the dog? And I'm not the only one wondering this. We've had some comments from viewers in the comment section on the YouTube channel. So we've got Jen B 7850 said, just thinking, if EPAT had a dog, why wouldn't she feed the scraps to the dog? Our dogs always get the yummy leftovers. Food for thought. Don't know if she had a dog. And Georgie also brings up whether she had a dog or also whether she had chickens, because let's not forget, she lives in a rural property. Why wouldn't you have chickens if you've got the space? So Georgie said, especially chooks, when she referenced those leftovers. which is a good point, I think. Moving back to those tech experts, Dr. Sorrell and Mr. Fox Henry. Justice Beal also told the jury that they needed to consider, quote, whether you can reasonably infer that on the 28th of May 2022, the accused sought out information on the iNaturalist website regarding death cap mushrooms in Victoria for a second time. He points out that there is no computer evidence of Erin Patterson logging into 2 posts on iNaturalist that talked about death cap mushroom sightings in the Gippsland area. What I think they're saying, what I understand by that, is that a computer within her household went to the iNaturalist website, but they don't know whether it was Erin herself. Is that right? Am I understanding that correctly? Or are they suggesting that someone in the general area of the home went to the iNaturalist website? Because the defence has already conceded that EPAT went to that website, but they said she only went to the website briefly and that she generally was not familiar with the iNaturalist website. So then Justice Beal tells the jury that it is, quote, not required to accept the opinions of Dr. Sorrell or Mr. Fox Henry, or indeed the expert opinions of the other experts who gave evidence in this case. He said that what they said on the stand are, quote, merely pieces of evidence that you may accept or reject. And I think this is where people got upset when they read this. Justice Beal said, quote, you will appreciate that defence did not challenge the evidence of Sorrell or Fox Henry. Rather, the defence challenged the inferences that you could draw from their evidence. So what he's saying is the defence aren't challenging that scientific data, but they are challenging whether that data is accurate in the context of the situation. So what they're saying is just because Erin's phone pinged on that cell phone tower, could it have pinged there because there was a lightning strike in Brazil that caused a chain reaction that eventually caused her phone to ping on a tower 3 towns over? That's how I'm understanding Justice Beal's statement. And I know it got some people angry, but controversially, I kind of agree with him. Because butterfly effects aside, can we in good faith convict a woman based on a series of events that simply can't be proven? With concrete surety, I mean. And if that is the case, is that a good thing or a bad thing for the Australian legal system? If Erin Patterson is found not guilty, is it a travesty of justice, leaving the families of those that died as a result of the lunch with no clear resolution? Or is it a testament to our nation that without reliable, substantiated proof, citizens cannot be incarcerated for murder? We've seen these women before. We've got Lindy Chamberlain, we've got Kathleen Folbig, more recently and controversially, if you ask my husband, Karen Reid. We can cover her at another stage. But can we honestly say that we would want to convict or be convicted on evidence that presents a clear sense of doubt? This is not the witch trials of 1692. Those trials were based on bias, hysteria, and fear. We're not pressing anyone to death in a field. We have to do this with a clear head. So we are left with this uncomfortable question. Does she look guilty? Absolutely. Can we prove she's guilty without the shadow of a doubt? Not really. Please leave your thoughts and comments down in the comment section below. Until next time, be creepy, but don't be a creep.